for joining us for this session on fine-tuning your onboarding process and optimizing for employee success. My name is Dyson Wells, Project Manager at Food and Beverage Ontario. As I do with each installment of FBO's Workplace and Cultural Development webinar series, I'd like to say a few quick words about this initiative. As most of you know, Ontario's food and beverage processing industry is enduring an intensifying labor crisis. In just 5 years, it's expected that the industry will experience up to 25,000 job vacancies due to the retiring age of our workforce, as well as growing challenges in attracting and retaining both skilled and frontline job seekers. In response, modernized employment recruitment and retention strategies have been identified as critical to attracting and retaining an essential workforce now and in the future. That's why we've created the Workplace and Cultural Development webinar series. Through a total of 4 sessions, we are engaging with industry leaders in HR and business development strategy to provide expert guidance on how to create an attractive workplace culture that grows authentic employer-employee relationships, attracts job seekers, and promotes innovation. Today, you'll hear from employment and EDI specialists about an array of resources to support you in establishing or refining your organization's onboarding process. With this, you'll be able to better align your process with the needs and goals of your new hires to better promote employee success. Before I introduce our presenters, I would like to first recognize that FBO's Workplace and Cultural Development webinar series, including today's session, is funded by the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. It's now my pleasure to introduce our specialists. I would like to first welcome Jason Wilson, who is an advancement coach with the Excellence in Manufacturing Consortium, as well as an employment coach with Careers Now. Jason has over 20 years of experience in manufacturing sector in a variety of roles, such as team leader, supervisor, and plant manager. He also spent 7 years as a recruitment consultant within the industry. Most recently, Jason was a program coordinator with 4-country labor market planning boards Connect to Skills project to provide training, coaching, mentoring, and job placement support to participants with barriers to employment. We also have a presentation from Anjali Mahatra. Anjali is unable to join us today. However, she was kind enough to still provide us with a presentation, which will be on equity, diversity, and inclusion in your workplace. Anjali is a EDI employment engagement specialist at the University of Guelph, and she is an enthusiastic professional individual with over 12 years experience working in equity, diversity, and inclusion. Anjali has been working in employment since graduating college, which has given her the ability to help and connect with community partners, students, and employers in ensuring they achieve their goals and are connected with the right services. Anjali's greatest passion is helping individuals finding their passion and working with it. Her 10 years of experience, 10 plus years of experience, and the people that she has worked with have taught her that no matter how many obstacles people can face, if they have passion and enthusiasm, they can go far. She has a psychology and criminology Bachelor of Arts and a diploma in social service work and child and youth work. With the introductions out of our way, we will begin with a presentation first from Anjali, who, like I said, was unable to join us today, but was still kind enough to present us with her entire presentation as a recording. So I will share that with everyone now.
I will start today by giving a land acknowledgement. Welcome. The University of Guelph resides on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We recognize this gathering place where we work and learn is home to many past, present, and future First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Our acknowledgement of the land is our declaration of our collective responsibility to this place and is its people's histories, rights, and presence. Our school supports and adds our collective voice to the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Committee on Indian Residential School to never forget, to hold governments and colonial forces to account, to seek redress, and healing for injustice. My presentation is on EDI and the onboarding process, why equity, diversity, and inclusion is important in hiring and onboarding. It's really important to have a strong, sustainable, and successful future. In order to do this, the University of Guelph encourages organizations and companies to recruit and hire individuals who will help students in our co-op and career partnership reach their full potential. The University of Guelph believes that a company's full potential can only be realized when they have a workforce that reflects the rich diversity of our communities, and building a diverse and equitable workforce is essential to an organization's success. It is vital that we understand the barriers and biases that prevent us from reaching the diversity we know we need to build a successful future. Applying an equity and inclusion lens to recruitment and selection allows us to identify those biases and barriers, address them, and ensure that the candidates you recruit and selected are representative of the world around us. The video I have that's currently not working is a video that just shows how people, when they're in an environment that they're not comfortable in, whether it's work or in a community environment, and the various things that people say that might stand out to them. So for example, if you're walking into an office and someone says something that they think is a joke, but it's not because you actually feel it. This is a point of how our biases and the way we interact with diverse people doesn't actually help if we don't have that EDI training. We want to plan our recruitment process. This means creating a diverse hiring committee and ensuring that every member of the hiring committee completes or has completed a form of EDI training. This could be any EDI training that you feel is representative of your company or your organization. It is important that people can identify and recognize their unconscious bias when hiring and recruiting for a company. We all have unconscious bias. It's born into us, it's taught as soon as we are little. It's not something we can actually get rid of because no matter what, we have feelings and opinions on something. But if we can recognize what that unconscious bias is, then we can know not to use it when we are hiring or when we are onboarding people. You want to construct your job posting. Construct the position description and review the biased or coded language. Most job postings will actually, if they don't do this, will actually wean out people that are that could be very, very successful in the role. So you want to make sure that it has none of this language in it. And then post the job ad. Post the position on job boards targeting candidates from equity-deserving groups or underrepresented groups, and engage in targeted networking to ensure a diverse shortlist. The next steps. You want to review applications. Use your hiring rubric to evaluate your applications to reach a shortlist. Conduct interviews with an equity lens, and ask EDI-related questions of your candidates. You want to know how they feel about EDI. What have they done to engage and promote an EDI inclusive workforce or an EDI inclusive environment? And then at the end, you want to engage in a final selection process. The importance of equity in your organization. So it makes companies and organizations more effective, and it is key to success and innovation. When we talk about diversity, it's important to focus on the ways in which diversity unlocks our full potential. There's a significant lack of diversity in many organizations and senior leadership levels. This hampers an organization's ability to succeed. Research suggests that organizations with gender diverse and racially diverse leaders are 35% more likely to outperform their metrics and goals. Furthermore, diverse teams are more innovative, more likely to implement breakthrough ideas, and perform more efficiently and more productive levels. If you have people, so just imagine you have people from various environments, various cultures, various learning paths that they've had, coming into a company, they can actually enhance what you have done. They can create an environment that has various innovative ideas and use their imagination and creativity and the way that they were raised or the way that they were the way that they were taught to enhance what you're doing in your organization because it comes with a different lens. So if you've been trying something one way and potentially not succeeding, and then you ask someone who has a different perspective on it to give their 2 cents, you might actually succeed at something that you were not going to succeed at before. The importance of an inclusive environment. Inclusive environments are essential to recruit and retain staff from equity deserving groups and foster a sense of belonging for all staff. Once we have the inclusive environment, what do we do next? Without a true commitment to equity and inclusion, we risk recruiting a diverse workforce without the supports in place to ensure the full success of every member. Retention of a diverse community is important upon each member of the community embedding equity, inclusion, and anti-oppressive lenses into everything we do, including equitable selection. Before I talked about our unconscious bias, something we need to monitor ourselves for and each other for is unconscious bias. The unconscious bias can hinder our decision-making and impact our team dynamic. Therefore, knowing where our own personal unconscious bias lies can ensure that you can recognize and take measures to prevent it. Unconscious bias can hinder decision-making, team dynamics, and leadership styles, and limit company diversity. This in turn can reduce equal opportunities to team members and job applicants. Sometimes these unconscious thoughts are biased and they can negatively affect judgment. A bias exists when rather than being neutral, we have a preference for or an aversion to a person or group. The term unconscious bias is used to describe an attitude towards people or associated stereotypes that exist in one's subconscious, meaning we don't necessarily know what they are. The factors that can contribute to formation of unconscious biases include socialization, culture, social and institutional influences, personal experiences, and things other people tell us, and external forces such as social media. We walk out into the world, we see someone doing something, and we automatically assume that that person represents their whole entire culture or ethnic background. But that's not the case. But if this is something that has been built into us since the time that we were little, then it could become the case because we believe it, even though we try to educate ourselves that that's not true. It's something that internally exists in our deep subconscious. So another big thing is your EDI statement and what it means. Writing an EDI commitment statement to candidates. As a company, consider writing an EDI commitment statement to candidates that you can include in your job posting. The EDI commitment statement should articulate what EDI means to the company, what commitments you make in terms of EDI, and what the inclusion climate looks like. Checklist for an EDI commitment statement. Have you articulated what EDI means to us as an employer? Have we articulated why EDI is important to us? Have we painted a picture of what inclusion looks like in our organization or company, such that an equity-deserving candidate feels confident they will be accepted and included in all of our activities? Have we outlined the steps we have taken to embed EDI in the recruitment and selection process? Have we made it clear that we are committed to accommodation and have reminded candidates how to identify accommodations needed during the application and interview process? And last, have we provided a process for how candidates can identify any inclusion concerns during recruitment in the selection process? If, for example, the only available interview times overlap with the time the candidate is not available or does not have childcare, is there an appropriate avenue for the candidate to raise this concern without fear? And that is a very big thing because a lot of people will not ask for accommodations, will not disclose prior to, because they fear that they won't be hired based on asking for these things. We've recently seen that there's an increase in anxiety, there's an increase in depression, there's an increase in a need for being at home or having childcare. And if someone identifies that when applying for a job, is that going to hinder their chance of getting the job? So we need to make sure that if we're writing an EDI statement and we support this, that we actually stand by it and don't let it cause us not to hire someone because they asked for an accommodation. And finally, equity, diversity, and inclusion does not end with one training or one hiring. It is something that is ongoing. We need to always ensure that we are engaging in constant equity training and hiring. So thank you very much for coming today. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me them. My email address is mehrotra@uoguelph.ca. Thanks so much and have a great day.
Thank you again, Anjali. I also would like to point out that we are also joined by Nicole Gallus as well. So I should probably do a quick introduction before opening it up to some questions specifically with regard to onboarding processes. So welcome, Nicole, and thank you for joining us. And let me just get your bio up here so people will know. Nicole Gallus is a talent solutions manager with foodgrads.com. Nicole Gallus is a talent solution manager that's focused on the food and beverage processing industry with over 10 years of third-party recruiting in the sector experience. She's noticed a gap in support for students and graduates looking to start their career. And as a result, she started Food Grads in 2016 and is a key partner of Food and Beverage Ontario's Taste Your Future and Careers Now programs. Nicole sold Food Grads in 2021 to the Talent Solution Group, who own careerinfood.com, agcareers.com, and DeLacy North America. She continues to grow Food Grads, supporting students and graduates while building relationships with colleges and universities. She has also gone back to her roots, partnering with organizations as a third-party recruiter to support their hiring needs. So welcome again, Nicole, and thank you again for joining us. I know that we had you during our recruitment webinar not too long ago, so I'm thrilled to have you back.
Thank you for having me, and I'm so sorry I'm late to the webinar. I do have valid excuses, I promise, but glad to be here. Thank you.
No trouble at all. No, there was no hiccups whatsoever. Just wanted to make sure that everyone that you got a proper introduction there. Today we're looking at how to fine-tune the onboarding process in order to optimize employee success. So it's an interesting question. And Jason's had the opportunity to see some of the questions that we have. But I did recognize, we do have two employer experts on the call today. So in fairness, I will say that if you do have comments, Nicole, I know that we had asked you to speak to one of the resources at the end of this, but if you do have comments, please do feel free to engage with the questions as well. So without further ado, excuse me, I will try my best to mute myself when I'm coughing or anything like that. I am a little bit sick. So, but without further ado, we'll jump into some of the questions on how employers can implement and reassess their onboarding process. So, as I noted, Jason is also a career coach and an employer coach, and he offers some of these services to employers specifically, as well as does interviews with job seekers to prepare them for their careers. So our first question is going to kind of recognize that I feel most people watching this right now will understand the basic concept of an onboarding plan. So I will spare them the question of what is an onboarding plan, but I would like to know what the benefits of an established onboarding process is. I think that a lot of the times we will tout, this is something an organization should have, but we don't always talk about why. So to begin with, let's just start with an easy question. What are the benefits of an onboarding process?
Yeah, so I mean, the benefits are, the big one is just making that person feel part of the team right away. The whole onboarding, let's start off with, we'll talk a little bit about the pre-boarding. So pre-boarding would be, you've interviewed someone, you've agreed to hire them, they're going to start in 2 weeks. So before they even on their start date, it's smart just to kind of touch base with them beforehand, maybe send them an email with a detailed itinerary of what to expect on their first day. And then so when they come in, they're comfortable, they know what they're about to expect, and then you can roll out from day one your onboarding process. So on day one, of your onboarding process, you want them to, again, make them feel at home. So introduce them to everybody right off the hop, maybe introduce them to one or two key people in each department. And then just kind of roll it out from there. Maybe have a little gift package for them to welcome them. Yeah, I mean, it's all about empathy and an understanding that they're new, they're getting to know new people, and so that they feel comfortable coming into a new role.
Okay. Perfect.
I can add on if you like. I've always got something to add.
Of course. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think it helps the employer as well to stay on top of their training. You know, when they bring on somebody new, if they have a schedule that they stick to, they know that new person has met certain people in certain departments that are relevant to that individual. And, you know, to echo what Jason said, it definitely, it makes the new hire feel welcome, feel part of the team. But I think it definitely benefits the employer, which I think oftentimes they don't think it benefits them or don't see that benefit. But, you know, at the end of a certain period of time, whether it's the 1 month mark, the 3 month mark, if they can look back and see what the person has had, and then if there are any gaps, typically we say the first 6 months of someone joining a company is when you know whether they're going to work out or not. Sometimes it's up to the employer to reflect and say, have we given the employee all the tools to make them successful, to set them up for success? And this is where the onboarding can really be such a great tool, because if they have done everything and that person isn't working out for any particular reason, then you know, at least as an employer they can say, well, we did this and this. But if they reflect and say, we really didn't introduce them to certain department leads, we didn't tell them about certain things, then, you know, there's some responsibility back onto the employer as well. So I would just add that in as well.
No, thank you. That was great. Okay. So my second question then is that a lot of employers may have a series of steps that they take on a casual basis when welcoming new employees. And this is kind of probably are going to speak to what's already been said about already about the benefits. But for example, they may hold staff meetings the day of for introduction, or they may assign an employee a work buddy, but nothing too standardized. This would be understandably very, very common for perhaps small knit organizations, very low employee count, perhaps, because they would see this as more of a, you know, there's so few of us, you're going to rub elbows with just about everyone, you're gonna get a quick gauge of the culture. But for these employers, what do they need to do if they want to develop a more strategic, formalized approach?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So the best thing you can do, and what has been working when sitting down and speaking with employers, especially small to medium size that don't have you know, the HR staff and the support internally, is definitely standardize your onboarding process. And that would include from day one right till probably the end of, you know, 6 months of the whole onboarding process. And the point of having it prolonged that long is retention as well. So retention now more than ever is more important with the way the economy is and the shortage of job seekers out there, that the human capital that you do have, you want to hold on to. So it's more important to engage them throughout, especially that first 6 months when it takes to get settled in and get trained and all that properly. So you know, we've got, when I sit down with employers, what I've got, thanks to Nicole and her foodgrads.com team, is we actually have a standardized procedure that we will give to the employer, and they can use that, and it's got great tools in it with forms and checklists and everything they basically need to standardize that whole process.
Great, thank you. Yes, and I will do my best as well to make sure that anyone watching this will have links to those resources. I forgot to mention as well that Anjali, with her presentation, also does have an EDI resource that will be available to everyone as well. So I will post those in the links those links in the comments for LinkedIn, as well as in our thread with Twitter, so that people can see that. But thank you for that. And I guess that brings us to asking the question, what are some strategies and tactics for getting staff involved in the onboarding process as a team? I know that I've already harped on, there's a lot of small organizations out there. And I've already kind of pointed out, they're wondering why they should be putting an onboarding process as a formal process in place. And I think there's a strong argument as to why they should be doing that. But what are some of the ways to help these organizations out? Because a lot of these owners are wearing multiple hats. They're not HR specialists, but they may be doing HR roles. It's a lot of shared responsibility. So now there's a case to be made that you need to have an onboarding process, and you would need a whole team to help you with that. So how can you get your team involved to help you with an onboarding process?
Yeah, so utilize your SMEs in each department. So it kind of rolls back to, again, on the onboarding process, when you're introducing them to somebody or a couple of people from each department. So first and foremost, assign them a buddy. So we'll call it a buddy system, a mentor, somebody that not only will be obviously working with them maybe day 2 or day 3 to start working with them after the paperwork and all that stuff gets taken care of in day 1, but that person now can basically spend all that time with the new person during lunch breaks, introducing them to everybody, kind of break the ice, introduce them to the entire team that way that they'll be working closely with. But so to each department, they'll have a subject matter expert. And I would have them spend time with each one of those in each department so that they can kind of understand the roles that are in play and how they will interact with each other. And I'm speaking from maybe on the manufacturing floor perspective of things, but it can be in just about any industry that is working with new hires. So just, that adaptability, integrating them into the system so that they have an understanding of what each department does, what role they play, and that will directly affect them and their job moving forward.
Well, I see you've unmuted, so
yeah,
please jump in.
I was just going to say, I think what's really cool about an onboarding process is enabling other individuals in the organization to just share their story, what they do for the company and how it fits, so that the new hire can see themselves in the broader scope of things. I think I work a lot with new grads, and one of the biggest complaints, especially, again, and it's not their fault, but smaller organizations that don't have an HR department where there is much more of that hand-holding and onboarding potentially. They kind of start their job, they're in it, and they don't really know how they fit, what's going on. They might not even know much about the industry or what the company does at large. So I think especially for new grads, that we do struggle to find people to join this industry. I think there's an onus on employers to show new grads how they fit the broader company, the different departments, how it all works together, and how their role is important, even if it's an entry-level position, how important it is to the company as a whole. And I do think that's part of the onboarding and how you can bring other team members in. And I would reiterate that, I think it's down to whoever's hired the person, choose people that love their role or enjoy their position, like enjoy the company. There's always good and bad. You don't expect it all to be flowers and butterflies and this is an amazing place, but the last thing you want is a buddy that's kind of not enjoying their job and is going to badmouth and not be overly complimentary, because again, retention, you want them to say good things and honest feedback, but somebody that enjoys what they're doing, maybe has done it for a long time and can speak to the broader picture.
Yes, definitely do not pair them up with someone who might not understand what they're doing or may not have favorable views of the position. For sure. And yes, I can see the buddy system is a pretty good way to get people kind of acclimatized to your organization as they go along. So for sure. To pull it back then, away from their first day and moving forward, I'd like to ask about one of the elements that I think is often more overlooked, which is, and Jason had touched on this already, but what is the role of onboarding before an employer's first day? What are you seeking to achieve with that?
I'll let Nicole touch on that one.
So what are they before they start with the organization? I mean, I recruit for a living. I work with people that are leaving one company, joining another. Sometimes they give themselves a break in between. They start their new role. And I would say that any change is always a stressful time for anybody. So if a company can make them feel sure about their decision, and I think that, like Jason pointed out right at the start, if that starts before they even, before their start date. So, a week before, 2 weeks before, HR or somebody in the organization needs to, congratulations, we're really excited to have you join our organization. Here's some literature to go through, here's some paperwork. Like Jason said, they could send a package. This is the food industry, send them some products, allow them to try the product, share it with their family and friends, and get excited about the new company. And it just, I think, will make them feel better about joining, better about the decision. So by the time 9 o'clock on the Monday that they start, they already feel welcomed, they feel at ease. It's nerve-wracking joining a new company. It's so overwhelming. There's so much to learn. I think anyone that starts a new job, your first week or 2 weeks, it feels so overwhelming and tiring. There's so much information thrown at you. So again, the schedule, I think, is a good idea to make sure you do structure and breaks. If you don't have a schedule, then you might find that you just overload the person for 3-4 days, and then they just feel frazzled, and then they feel nervous. Was this the right decision? Whereas if you have a proper structure, you can structure it. You can make sure there's downtime. We all need maybe an hour, half an hour before meeting that next person, just to collect our thoughts, maybe text our family and say touch base, just have those moments of downtime. So that would be, I think I answered the question. I can't remember the original question.
You did, yes. Yeah. And that was actually kind of why I was asking that question. It was my sneaky kind of way of seeing if I can get someone to say when that starts. And 2 weeks is 1 to 2 weeks in advance. And you also provided ways that you can actually get them to be a little more excited about it beforehand, which I think is really great. It's such a simple way of getting people excited, right?
Yeah, I think, and as well, remember that most of the time people have to give 2 weeks notice. They might give themselves a week or 2 weeks, so there's some real crucial time there that while they're recharging their batteries before they start the new role, that could be great timing to provide some of the paperwork that they need to go through so that they don't feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. In similar kind of question, and I'm hoping we can keep this one brief because I think this is the most understood one, was what should an organization be looking to achieve on their first day? Because we've got, in my mind, there's three steps to an onboarding process. There's 3 sections in a timeline. There's before they start, the day they start, and after they start. So for people who are, whether they're drafting out their first or they're reassessing their onboarding process, what is the goal for the first day?
Yeah, I think you just want to be prepared. I guess it's going to depend on what role exactly they're doing, but you just want to kind of provide direction, maybe in the facility and the systems, have an agenda for the day. It can be just a welcoming letter or whatever. And that's again on the pre-boarding before they come on board. But you definitely want to have everything prepared, and then just have anything like any kind of training sessions that you want to get in. Again, if it's production, maybe they need to get their WIMA certificates. You might take care of that. You might have them go on the website, read the website. Typically on a website, company website, we'll talk about their culture, the mission statement and stuff like that, and get familiar with that. And what is the company culture? What is the ABC company way? And little things like that. But and then just again for day one, make them feel comfortable. Just get them to know their area, maybe where they'll be working, the lunchroom, and all that kind of stuff, and introduce them to maybe a couple of key people on the first day that they'll be working more closely with. But you don't want, again, like Nicole said, you don't want to overwhelm them on the first day. Make it light. Probably paperwork will have to get completed and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I was going to add that, you know, if they have an office, if there's a desk involved, clean the desk. Something so obvious, but, you know, you hear sort of, I've heard stories like this that, you know, on the first day, it was like they weren't ready for them. And it's something really straightforward, but just get rid of the paperwork that might be in the drawer that belonged to the previous person that sat at that desk. You know, just it makes them feel like they are welcome, that the company's ready for them, excited for them to start. You know, I hear horror stories that they go to pick up their phone and you know, it's not clean, that kind of thing. I mean, it's just all the impression that you get. So I think those are really, I think, obvious things, but it should be noted. You know, Jason mentioned the workspace, familiarize themselves with their base, where they're going to be, the lunchroom, the washrooms, and all that. You know, somebody that they can go to if they need to ask questions. You know, that kind of thing. And I can't stress enough. I think just remember humanize it. You're dealing with someone that's been nervous up to that point. Everyone's nervous, typically starting a new job. So, you know, if there's intense training, maybe break that down with a video to watch. And then if it's working and talking and listening, you know, have those breaks, you know, in the training. Don't make it super intense. Think about how you would feel and whether you need downtime and, you know, breaks and that kind of thing. So that would be the goal, I think, for the first day, and keep the person excited, you know, keep the morale up, you know, as much as you can.
Thank you. Yes, no, I could imagine, like it's simple things like that that means so much. Like, I mean, especially the desk one, that really resonates. I think that's a good example, and it's just so simple. And I think we'll touch on a few things that you mentioned there in a brief moment, actually. So onboarding also includes an employee progress plan to support new hires in their initial first weeks or months at a company. What do these progress plans typically look like, and what should be kept in mind when developing one?
Yeah, so when you have a plan to bring someone on, and obviously you know what their job's going to be, and you want them to be at a specific place in a specific time and to be trained. So I mean, for your agenda, there might be one specific role or one specific process that you want them to be fluent on. But also remember that cross training is huge, and that's not a bad thing to start early on that and have them maybe start on a couple different roles or a couple different processes right off the hop. And then that's for a lot of different reasons. Again, if we're going onto a manufacturing floor, we're talking ergonomics, and if they're doing repetitive work, we don't really want them doing the exact same thing all day, every day. So start them off maybe on one process for a week, and then have them start to cross train maybe on the second week. Have them do that for the second week, and then now you can start cross training and rotating them through for the first couple, maybe for the first couple of months, even first 3 months, and let them get really good at those processes first. And then moving forward, you can make a game plan and a cross training plan to further cross train them and increase their knowledge. But if you don't have an agenda, you really have no goals. So make sure you have a goal. What do you need? What do you need within your facility? What kind of projects, what kind of processes do you need to meet? And, you know, just kind of roll it out that way. But again, so your key trainer, we talked about setting them up with a buddy or a mentor or a key trainer, and you want somebody to obviously be positive and loves what they do. But that person should also be well cross-trained and know multiple different processes, just because now you've got flexibility as an employer on where you can start this new person and then roll things out from there. Nicole?
Yeah, I mean, I echo what you said. I think having a plan is key, because, you know, at the end of a certain period, is it like at the end of the month, you want them to be able to, I mean, ultimately you find this person because you have a gap and you need them to get up and running as fast as possible, especially if you're a small organization, maybe the role's been open for a while and someone else has been doubling up on work. So you want them, you know, essentially to hit the floor running, and so you need to get them trained as quick as possible. So yeah, I mean, I think everything that you said, Jason, is key. You know, cross training is key. Having a schedule to make sure they're hitting the timelines. I would just add that, you know, there's no harm in asking the individual how they learn best, because you could spin your wheels when, you know, they learn better by doing. And so let them, again, it depends on the position and abilities if they can. But, you know, perhaps they'll say, let me go and watch me, or am I shadowing somebody for a week or 2 weeks? You know, what is the situation? And I think there's no harm in finding out how that person learns best, because everyone's different. Watching for 2 weeks may delay, allowing them just to try it and learn, and they learn that way, could speed up the process. So, you know, get to know the person and understand how they learn, I think is key as well. It will support the onboarding process for sure.
Okay, thank you. And I guess this has kind of been answered in like indirectly, but what does an organization do when they're assessing the goals that they set to determine whether these are the right goals that they need to be striving towards? Whether that's for, you know, the organization's goals or the employees' goals.
Yeah, have a checklist or a training matrix or what have you, and hopefully that they're meeting those goals and getting trained in time. So for example, like the template with food grads, it's fantastic, the onboarding process. So it standardizes everything, and it gives everybody, it's going to vary on role. It'll maybe the level of the role could be a manager role or leadership role, or it could be just a general labor role. That can all affect maybe what different types of training obviously you're going to provide, but it can still be standardized onto the approach of the pre-boarding, onboarding, and then retaining within a specific amount of time. So, you know, even on the template, so you've got action steps day one, and we've got a list of stuff that you want to provide and reference material that you can use. We've got a phase two, which is starting the job training and company culture journey, the expectations of the first week. And then there's phase three, phase 4, 5, all down to learning and development, continuous improvement project, maybe have them work on something that's where you have something that needs to be improved or something like that they can work on. It kind of gets them away maybe a little bit from the routine of the daily tasks. And then also on the agenda, just make sure that you're setting up one-on-ones at least weekly to provide feedback to them on how they're doing, but also the other way around, where they're providing feedback on maybe where they're struggling. So.
And I was just going to add, I think that there's no harm when setting goals to go back to the job description and make sure that they are being asked to do the job that they think they were hired to do. You know, that's a big complaint, that, especially if it's not a standardized process, you know, the hiring process. I know a lot of the time job ads will say ad hoc duties as required and that type of thing. But I think if you go too far off, people then become unhappy. I was hired to do this and now I'm doing this. So I think that it's important that employers, whilst they might communicate that a smaller company, you might wear more hats and be asked to do things, and we're a team, and those types of things can be communicated. I think it's important to go back to the person applied to that role because they are based on that job description. So, make sure that they're learning, and the goals are set in terms of what the job requirements are and duties are. So that's where I would start. And yeah, as Jason said, we've got toolkits and checklists and things like that, which make it really easy for a company to adopt. They don't have to come up with this stuff. And I will add that you'll be surprised how many big organizations with healthy HR teams don't have an onboarding process. It seems to be the last thing a lot of the time that's thought about. So, smaller companies shouldn't beat themselves up if they don't have one. It is a challenging thing to do and find time to roll out, which is why hopefully this toolkit, this onboarding program that we've put together can really help. And it's selfish, we want them to stay in the industry. We want employers to do their best in bringing people on board so that, we keep people in this industry. We really need that. We can't lose people, especially if it's their first taste of food and beverage processing. The last thing you want is them to say, oh, this, I wasn't trained, I didn't have any onboarding, it was awful, I didn't enjoy it. And then they leave. And we work so hard to recruit people into the industry as a whole. I feel like as a whole, we need to make people feel welcome and do our best when they do come through the doors.
Thank you. Good points. And speaking of good points, our final question is what I was talking about, where you had kind of already touched on this already, Nicole. But for employers creating their first onboarding plan or looking to reassess an existing plan, and I think this is a really important aspect. What are some approaches to keeping employers engaged and driven as they adjust to company culture?
For me?
Go ahead,
yeah,
Nicole.
Yeah.
I think to keep them engaged, like we've touched on, I think if you can make them feel like part of the organization, an important part of the organization from day one, that creates loyalty. Again, it's the good and the bad, but it's enabling them to feel part of an organization, to feel part of a community. If they've met lots of people on the first week, different departments, they see how their role fits in the broader scheme of things. Then, if they're having a bad day, they might think twice about any sort of off-the-cuff decision because they know they're going to let somebody else down. And it's that loyalty piece. I think you build that from even before they come through the door, but certainly once they're in the organization, that's when it starts. And that's why onboarding is so important. The first 6 months, is really make or break a lot of the time.
Great. Jason, anything to add on that?
I think Nicole hit everything. Again, use empathy, right? Everybody here probably was new at some point, and we all know how we like to be welcomed into an organization. So just keep that in the back of your mind. But again, be structured about it. It'll keep it much easier. Just like any kind of process on the manufacturing floor that works you typically under a standardized work instruction, keep your onboarding standardized as well, and it's less work for anybody that has to be in charge of the onboarding process.
Perfect. Okay. So thank you, Jason and Nicole, for joining us. And I can't express how important it is to actually be able to talk about the onboarding process, especially if it's something that's not always thought of first. It's not always. I think the excuse me, the focus is primarily on trying to get these people to commit to working for you first. So it's the attraction aspect, and the retention aspect. But people often forget that the onboarding process is critical to both those goals.
But if they have a great, successful onboarding, they'll tell their friends, they'll tell their family, and hopefully that's where we're attracting more people into the industry, into the company, but also into the industry. You can kind of represent the entire industry. And so I would definitely say employers, book your meeting with Jason through careersnow.ca, and then you get your hands on this package, this onboarding package.
Yes, absolutely. So I will make sure that is shared with anyone who might be watching right now on our streaming links, and then also we will make a secondary post as well for people who can access those resources, including and you had a hand in putting that together as well. So also just kudos to you for that, because it's an incredibly valuable resource. And then also we will be sharing the EDI resource from Anjali's presentation. So with that, I will bring our session today to a close. Just a few words, and again, thank you, Jason, Nicole, and Anjali. And thank you to everyone joining us this afternoon. Before we wrap things up, I'd just like to remind everyone that the Workplace and Cultural Development webinar series is a new addition to FBO's comprehensive workforce strategy to alleviate the sector's labor crisis. So FBO, is committed to supporting Ontario's processors in attaining and retaining employees by delivering highly accessible and effective initiatives like the Careers Now program. Again, both of our presenters on this session right now are valued members of that program also. So the Careers Now program offers job seekers free job-ready skills training, access to recruiters and employers through the job fairs, and insight into career pathways through mentorship. If you would like your business to participate in one of our job fairs or mentorship sessions, or if you would like to connect with job seekers through our Careers Now employer portal, please visit foodandbeverageontario.ca/careersnow. And with that, I want to say one last big thank you. And we are all done mercifully, because I am obviously struggling here. But thank you again.
Poor Dyson.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Okay. Have a good day, everyone.